Tucker and Dale versus Evil was requested by a new patron of mine, Wyche. Told you I'd get your name right this time. I think I got it right. I got it right, right? Okay. Anyways, he recommended or requested this movie from becoming a patron over on my Patreon, and this is a pretty beloved cult classic at this point, but it being 9 years old, I'm honestly very surprised we have not seen a sequel to this, especially since both Alan Tudyk and Tyler Labine have had pretty decent careers. Not like amazing, they're not like, you know, A-list stars or anything, but they're very relevant still. Tyler Labine was recently in Escape Room, which saw a good amount of success, and we have Alan Tudyk as K2SO right there from Rogue One, which he's going to reprise his role in the Cassian Andor series coming to Disney Plus soon enough, which I'm very, very excited for. And of course, you know, Firefly, and you know, Tyler Labine had a Deadbeat, that, like, I think it was a Hulu original show. I know these guys, you've seen them in a million things, but K2SO, and most recently for me, the Escape Room movie. But I think the thing they're probably both best known for, especially in the horror community, is Tucker and Dale. I saw Tucker and Dale costume duo at Mad Monster Party in Arizona when I went a few months ago, and man, those guys really nailed it, and the crowd was like on fire, man, when they came out, because there's such an affinity for this duo. Now, what's interesting is that in the same year, there was another movie that came out that was pretty much very, very similar, except for it was missing Tucker and Dale, which is why it's not really remembered, because Tucker and Dale are kind of vital to this film, obviously, seeing as how they're the titular characters, but the whole story revolves around them, and their performances are fantastic. But this other movie, I Didn't Come Here to Die, I do actually own it, but I didn't feel like digging for it. Plus the cover art's shit, and you probably would immediately be like, nope, ain't watching that, even though it has like the exact same cover art as Absentia by Mike Flanagan. Everyone seems to want to watch that, but probably because Mike Flanagan's who Mike Flanagan is right now. But yeah, it's pretty similar. So if for some reason you don't know what the hell this movie's about, it is about, I'm going to get into spoilers obviously, but I don't know anyone who hasn't seen this movie, but if you haven't seen this movie, it's essentially a bunch of kids go out to, you know, have an adventure out in the backwoods, and of course, you know, they see some hillbillies and they think that they're murderers, and because of their prejudice, and they think, yeah, that these guys are probably evil and whatnot, and they end up killing themselves trying to run away from the killers, who actually are more along the lines of some characters like, you know, Harry and Lloyd from Dumb and Dumber. They're like sweethearts, totally simple-minded goofballs, and oh man, this is a really fun movie. I don't know anyone that dislikes this movie. I'm not going to be saying anything anybody doesn't already think or hasn't already heard or thought, but regardless, it was asked of me to do, and horror comedies have always been difficult for me. That's why I don't review them all so often, because I have a hard time just talking about comedic gags. It's like, you saw the movie, you know what's funny. I cannot be here to tell you, which is odd. It's almost hypocritical, because all I talk about on the channel is, you know, scares and kills, and it's no real different as far as the setup goes. But I don't know why. I've always found it kind of odd to talk about comedy. Something that isn't funny is how hot the chicks are in this movie, especially the main girl here, who Dale's crushing after, Allison. She reminds me of what's her name? Like Christy, freaking Marsha Brady from the Brady Bunch movies, like the 90s versions. She looks similar to that chick to me. But man, she is she's just gorgeous in this movie. All the girls in this movie are very attractive. Nothing surprising there. It's also a very good looking movie. It's got a high production value to it, so it looks like a theatrically released movie, which is nice. And so yeah, just all of the misunderstandings in this movie and the way that the writers were able to have fun and play around with, okay, so now how do we have these characters interact with these characters, and how do we set up the situations in which for them to hear things the wrong way and vice versa, and just to keep kind of playing off of one another. That is such a fun thing to do as a writer. You know, having somebody overhear something and out of context it sounds one way, but in context you're like, oh, he's just being sweet. You know, when one of my favorites is when Dale is with Allison and she offers to help him dig up the shitter hole, you know. And when they show up, they think that she's a prisoner, a kidnapper, and they're like, look at him, sick son of a bitch, is making her dig her own grave. That's just very clever writing. It's like, how do we get them to come and see them together, but to not instantly know that she isn't actually a prisoner, and there's probably, you know, more than meets the eye. Not Transformers. But when I watch this kind of stuff, I look at that and I go, that's cool. It reminds me of, like, you know, the scene in My Cousin Vinny when he comes in to talk to Ralph Macchio's characters, but he's asleep, and it's the friend, and he doesn't know who Vinny is, and he thinks he's like some, you know, prison rapist. And that is one of my favorite comedic bits in any film ever. Just the total misunderstanding and the double entendres. You know, everything has like these different meanings to them. If you, out of context, you think he's there talking about raping him and how he should be fucking grateful and what an honor it is to be fucked by him and all this stuff. You should be down on your fucking knees. I didn't know it was such an honor to get a visit from you. It's like, oh, dude, that's stuff. I don't know. Every single time I watch that movie, and of course I'm a little biased because I think Marissa Tomei in that is the hottest woman that's ever lived on planet Earth. But it just kind of reminds me of that stuff where it's just so misunderstood, but being the person that's in on the joke, like in on both sides of it, and understanding what's going through his mind versus what's going through his mind of him being like, I'm here to save you, and this guy's like, he's here to rape me. Love that stuff. And it's been played in 1,000 freaking movies over the years, but that's like my favorite example of it. And this movie just does such a fun job, and the reactions of everybody, and being able to keep everyone at odds with each other, and having to introduce this, you know, evil character, essentially, which Tucker and Dale versus evil. Interesting title. Like, is the evil the frat boy kid that ends up being the villain? The evil of the, you know, the spawn of a backwoods hillbilly racist, or well, I don't know if he's a racist. I don't know where I threw that shit in. Oh man, now who's being prejudiced? All hillbillies are racists. No. Where the hell I got that one from? Edit. Just kidding, I don't edit. But yeah, like, what's the evil? Like, just the bad luck, the situation, that's the evil? I don't know. So, versus evil. I'm not exactly sure what the evil is. I have to assume that it's the kid that ends up being. But when you see the title and you see the characters and you see that and you get into it, you think like they're going to be fighting demons. They're going to be fighting some kind of evil force. And it's like, no, they're just fighting against bad luck for other people and themselves as well. Because, of course, then the cop shows up and he gets himself killed, and it puts them in a situation where they easily could have went to jail, because the stories in which they're telling him, which, you know, Tucker kind of alludes to, like, you'd have to be a complete idiot to believe that any of this would happen. You know, a college kid came and jumped into the wood chipper. I think the first time I saw this movie, that was my favorite takeaway, was when Tucker would like mentioned that that a kid had jumped head first into his wood chipper, and then the like, you know, his commentary kind of acting out the way a conversation with the police would go, like, oh, it's been a doozy of a day, you know, thing, and then he actually ends up repeating that line later to the cop in the exact same manner. I thought that that was all just very funny, but the whole idea of sitting there and ducking down and then a kid jumping into a wood chipper and actually for a moment thinking that there's a suicide pact and that these kids were murdering themselves all over their property in such elaborate, gruesome ways. It's just, I found that to be extremely funny in the moment that I had first seen it, and it held up well as well. And of course, there's lots of nonsensical things and things that are convenient to the plot, and like, why would Dale leave a message? Now I get it, they're simple-minded people, although Dale is also kind of portrayed as an idiot savant of sorts, almost like a Rain Man, where he can remember everything, but he's also dumb as a stump, as she says. But she does make a good point, like there's a difference between education and intelligence, which I 100% agree to. But that's a conversation for a different time. But yeah, like, why would he leave a carved tree stump or tree branch or whatever the hell this big thick piece of wood is, a message on there for these kids? It's the fucking woods. There's branches and logs everywhere. Why would kids stop in the middle of the woods to look at a branch to see if it had writing on it and then understand that it's for them? Like, there's no reason for him to even do that. As I had already kind of previously stated, yes, Dale is simple-minded, but leaving a note on a log, the only way that that actually works is exactly how it ends up working, is that they just so happen to be cowering and hiding, you know, because they're afraid of these guys, and they happen to oversee him doing it, so then they know that it is actually there for them to look at. And there's plenty of other things in this movie that are like that, but that's a prime example where you have to just kind of accept that that's what happened, because it's comedy first, and it's not spoof, but it's like one step down. It's almost slapstick. So in fact, it actually almost becomes, it's parody comedy. It's a parody of the slasher subgenre. And yeah, I mean, you can't take anything in the movie seriously. So if you're watching this and you're like, but you're not getting into the spirit of the film. There's films, and if you're going to take yourself seriously, then you better take yourself seriously, and you better not change your tune somewhere later in the movie, because then it's just going to be too jarring and it's going to take you out and you're going to get upset. But with a movie like this, the tone is set very early on. You know that nothing in this film is to be taken seriously, and if you have taken it seriously, you've completely missed the point. All the kills in this are great. As far as like the way that they go down, they could have been more elaborate for sure. They could have spent a little more time. They could have been more Final Destination-y in a way. But I mean, the simplicity of it, I feel like, can also add to the charm in a way. Maybe I'm just being someone who's kind of seen it all, so I do personally like more elaborate type deaths, just because I find them to be imaginative. And being someone who writes horror and being someone who loves horror and has seen most things, it's always good to get a new fresh idea on a kill, because it's hard to kill people in original ways. And the fact that they actually have a setup here where they're killing themselves, that they're not actually being murdered by somebody other than just their misfortune and their misunderstanding, it's just, I felt like they could have maybe had a little more fun playing around with how these things could go down. But I'm not knocking it at all. That's a nitpick. That's taking a great movie like this and just being a greedy son of a bitch that's like, well, I want more. So, and a sequel would be very difficult. Because doing it again, what would you do? I mean, do the same thing again? You can't do the same thing again. So it's probably smart they don't do a sequel, but I'm sure people would love to see Tucker and Dale back in some capacity. We'll see if that ever happens. Chad's final look in this, when he's like looks like freaking Two-Face from Batman, I dig it. I liked how they kind of turn his backstory onto himself, so he loses it, although it doesn't help them at all, and he ends up getting himself killed, thrown out the window, and he lands on there. I guess he's dead. Could have picked up from there. I mean, I guess Chad could come back, but this is a decade later, so I don't know. But yeah, I really liked the look of him. The performances from everyone, I liked that. I thought it was really funny that the like ditzy blonde chick in this, when she was in the house, she was so scared and she was so willing to run at any moment in the movie, but then when a house is about to catch on fire and or explode, which it was an and in this scenario, she just sat there and decided to light up a cigarette when multiple other characters decided to run for the doors who were more incapacitated than she actually was. She was just sitting in a corner, or standing in a corner, really doing nothing, and had the most mobility and the most ability to get out the door faster than pretty much anybody. So I found it very, I don't know what word I would use here, odd, ironic, that in this moment when she has the ability to actually save her life, she doesn't. She just sits there and is like, I'm going to light up a cigarette and just take it. That's a joint. I don't know. I don't smoke cigarettes or joints, so I'm not sure why I went for that. But there you go. And I love that they think that she has Stockholm Syndrome when they come in. As I said, it's just the writers playing around with, okay, now they know she's okay. What do we do? Like, oh, she's got Stockholm Syndrome. You know, it's just diversion and confusion and just every little thing they can throw in there. It's good stuff. I love that the dude's caught on fire, and then she grabs a thing of like moonshine. I would assume that that's what that is, because yet again, I'm prejudiced, and I think that all hillbillies have moonshine in their house, but I would assume that's what that was. I guess it could be like paint thinner. I don't know. Maybe one of them is an artist. And she douses the guy in it, and boom, he just lights up. To try to put someone out and to only add to it with an accelerant like that, oh man, you would feel like shit. The fact that Tucker has two fingers, sewn back on, and one of them clearly is a woman's. Yeah, that would never happen. But as I said, it's a movie. You just gotta go, that's funny. It's a funny gag. You wouldn't have to sit there and be like, well, a doctor would obviously know that's not his finger, and within a couple days it would reject that finger unless it was like a completely compatible donor, which I highly doubt. And then you'd have a Shape of Water ripping the finger from the body. Oh, I love that freaking scene in that movie. It's like my favorite scene in that whole damn thing. The ending is a little off-putting, to be completely honest, though, because Dale is portrayed as this sweetheart and, such a stand-up character, and so not only chivalrous, but also heroic when need be, especially when it comes to the ladies. And here he talks his friend into going over and talking to this girl who's, way, way out of his league. Like, the thing with Dale is that even though Dale is overweight and he is, a hillbilly in this, Tyler Labine is still a really attractive man, and he pulls off his weight pretty well. And he's a guy that I look at and go, he could still get chicks, like, no problem. But his friend is just haggard, and his friend is straight up like caveman raping this girl at the end, like knocking her out and like throwing her over his shoulder. He doesn't actually, but he like drags her by her foot away as everyone's like screaming. And Dale and Allison there decide to just and they legitimately like say something like, "Oh fuck it," or like, you know, paraphrasing here, but essentially like, not our fucking big, you know, it's not our business, it's not our problem. And it's like, I can assume that they were going for the like, look, we dealt with enough chaos around us, we're not getting ourselves wrapped up in that again. But it's like, Dale, you're responsible for putting this into this guy's head that he could get a young, gorgeous girl like that looking the way he does because you're on this high that you think you look like him and got the gorgeous girl that's sitting next to you. But when he's like knocking her out and is, as I said, like primal cave raping, it's your response. You don't just go, "Oh well, I guess I influenced that, but I would much rather kiss my hot girlfriend." Like, you can stop your friend from that and then get back to kissing your hot girlfriend. In fact, she should be more interested in you from stopping the Neanderthal rape that's actually occurring next to you. And she should not be okay with it either, obviously. Being a woman more so than anything, a dude going to rape a girl in front of them. Was he gonna fuck her right there in the bowling alley? Like, I don't know. That ending's very off-putting to me. Just kind of like takes these two really sweet characters and just has them not only influence, but also kind of look away from rape or whatever the fuck he's going to do with that girl. I don't think he has any good intention. I don't think he's gonna like go, you know, buy her stuff and, you know, like, she's not gonna wake up and she's gonna have like a manicure and a pedicure. Okay. She is going to have a rape kit done on her. So anyways, that ended real dark, especially for a freaking horror comedy. But anyway, guys, that was fun. I didn't even look at my notes. I wrote a whole bunch of notes here. I didn't look at them once. I don't know if I missed any. I'm sure I did. This chick gets... I like that he buys her a helmet at the end, because I had written down a note here that she took serious head blows like multiple times in this film. She would need to go to a doctor. Like, have you not ever watched like documentaries on the NFL? Like, concussion after concussion and getting knocked unconscious is really bad for the brain. So she needs to check into that. The chamomile tea using, it's like his kryptonite in this. That was pretty funny. You're half a hillbilly, and he's like, no, I hate hillbillies. The irony. Blah blah blah. Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter. I don't even know why I take notes half the time. Anyway, guys, so Rye, thank you so much for contributing to the Patreon. If you want to join the Patreon and become a patron and request a movie so that I can talk about freaking Neanderthal rape and whatever the hell else I ramble about, go on down to the description below, click blah blah blah. You get the shtick. All right, adios.